In today's 3 More Points podcast, Harry and I talk about this ownership. Are they only in it for the money? I think what we can see and what we're going to discuss today tells us that they probably are. I'm not happy about it. Let's get into the pod. Yes, guys, welcome back to another video, or should I say welcome back to the 3 More Points podcast. We've had a 2-month hiatus. I don't know what this man on the other side of the screen has been up to, but I'm sure he's going to give us some insight now. Happy New Year, Harry. A month and a bit into 2025, but you're back. You're back uploading on your channel as well, I hope. You better be anyway, because the boxing fans need you.
It's too late for Happy New Year, mate. Happy birthday. We can go over happy birthday.
It was your birthday 2 days ago, so everyone go and subscribe to a guy called Henry's Boxing Channel.
Exactly.
If you like boxing. If you don't waste the metrics.
No, as a gift to me, that would be lovely. You've been trying to replace me on this channel.
I'm a leader. I want to be posting content for the people. I don't want to let people down. And your lack of presence has been alarming to me.
Why
so
haven't
I was calling up Joey Knight,
yeah,
who's also a boxer, and he'd probably knock you out.
Yeah,
and
probably.
the big dog Josh Veste.
Yeah.
They were more than happy to fill in for you. So yeah.
Have you had
come at me, bruv?
Why haven't you had Eunice on the channel yet?
Why haven't I had Eunice on the channel yet? Well, obviously everybody knows we had a massive fight. No, I'm joking. Everybody still believes that Eunice and I had a big fight. Eunice and I didn't have a fight, but we're on 2 different time zones, and it was difficult to arrange shoots to run the channel properly. But Eunice and I still talk on the regular.
Where there's smoke, there's often and nearly always fire. And the fire in this instance is the raging inferno of a dispute between you and Eunice. Regardless, let's get into this.
Okay, right. I'm actually burning in multiple ways right now. I'm sunburnt, which is just never an ideal scenario to be in. I'm also very much frustrated by the Todd Boehly Vivid Seats ticketing scandal. And I've read through a bunch of articles about this. I've deciphered my own opinion. And the more I look into it, the more I realize this is fundamentally a huge scandal that needs to be addressed here on the channel. So for those of you that are in the dark and don't know about this, Todd Boehly, the co-owner of Chelsea Football Club, is an investor and director of Vivid Seats, which is a US-based ticket resale platform that facilitates the resale of Premier League tickets. And the prices of these tickets aren't what you'd expect if you were a Chelsea member, or if it goes on general admission, you can spend 40 quid here, 50 quid there. Tickets in England cost a lot of money. You go to Germany, you can get a season ticket, almost at some clubs, for the price of 1 ticket in a supposedly great seat at Chelsea Football Club. Ticket prices are already a joke. Chelsea Football Club have also tried to clamp down on ticket touting. What this is if you've got a ticket, you sell it on the street for more than the value of what that ticket is supposedly worth. So if that's the case, and Chelsea, Premier League clubs are trying to clamp down on this, why and how is it justifiable for our owner to be facilitating this to foreign fans? It is absolutely not right in itself. There's a conflict of interest here between Todd Boehly, who is obviously more than associated, more than affiliated with our football club, being the co-chairman or whatever it is of this ticketing platform. There's also legality, ethic metrics that we should talk about here as well. Because in the UK, it is actually illegal to resell tickets. Foreign platforms can actually do it. And at the same time, we have to address here that I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want foreign fans inside Stamford Bridge. There's a big difference between saying that and actually dealing with this whole touting situation here. Because for football fans, right, they spend a lot of their hard-earned salaries on going and following Chelsea home and away. But if we can't resell our tickets for more, and we're just the run-of-the-mill, bog-standard human being who doesn't make billions like Todd Boehly, why is it okay for the billionaire to be profiting off of football fans coming to Stamford Bridge? Now, there's been no comment right now from Chelsea on this. There's been no comment from the Premier League. And quite frankly, more importantly than anything else, this is stopping fans that are local fans to Stamford Bridge, proper Chelsea fans that live in London, that have been following this club for years, that is stopping them from actually following our club. You wonder why the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge sucks arse. It's because of stuff like this. Now, Harry, either take me off my high horse or elevate me into the sky a little bit more. This, for me, is disgusting.
You're getting elevated. It's an absolute joke. I think it's just got me thinking about the state of football in general, the state of life in general, do you know how bloody hard it is already for people to make ends meet? To get to the football is like such a special and important thing. For people to spend their hard-earned money on it, it's not easy. And there's people that go to Chelsea who are not rich people. They're just normal, everyday people. And they are the most important people in the fan base a lot of the time, because they're the ones that are the backbone of the support base. They're the ones that really drive the club forward, that give that extra support that like leads you to better results on the pitch as much as anything. But also, it's the spirit of the club that you will never kill when it's in the fan base. It doesn't matter what happens to the dressing room or what happens in these other places. As long as the fan base remains intact, things will be okay at a club. But this will absolutely destroy Chelsea Football Club. I think the best analogy I can give you is a football one, which is look at the transfer market. Look what happens when there's a massively inflated fee for a player in the transfer market. It invariably and inevitably has an effect on all the other ticket prices. So you can look at it and go, oh, this is just one-off. This is just on this platform to foreign people that want to come and watch. And by the way, as George said, reiterate, this is not about diversity of fans at Stamford Bridge. This is about how it will impact the diversity of fans at Stamford Bridge when it comes to socio-economical status. It means that people that can't afford it right now or can barely afford it right now definitely won't be able to afford it in the next few years, because the prices will start to elevate. If you know out there is someone or multiple people that will pay, I don't know how much you were saying it was, George. Did you say it was sort of 20 times the face value as it is?
There's without being quoted directly on the prices, because I'm not going on this website, I'm not giving them more clicks to put them up the algorithm. There's been, I think, it's not just Chelsea tickets as well. It's Liverpool tickets, I think West Ham, there's loads of Premier League clubs, and I think there's even tickets on that site now for Liverpool's last game of the season at home for 17 grand.
Wow.
That's someone's salary for a 90-minute game of football. Yeah, you might see Liverpool win the league. But this is a big problem. And I think for me, more than anything else, it can be related to on-the-field activities. It can be related to Chelsea's policies in the transfer market. It's so distasteful to walk into the club and be like, we're going to make sure that Chelsea are competing on all fronts. We want to be winning all these trophies. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And basically just selling us all a lie. And from that moment of coming in and making those claims, we were also told, right? And this is important to address too, and I want to discuss this here. We were told that communication was gonna be open. We were gonna know that obviously we're so used to Roman, and to be fair, like what Roman does in his spare time and in operations, I don't care, because I'm a fan who wants to see us win, and win we did. And since these owners have come in, I feel like the discord between them and the fans, it's now at the highest, because we're now seeing what our co-owner is actually doing to profit off of us fans. Like, surely now there has to be a statement that comes out here from Boehly to address this situation. Chelsea are quiet on it. The Premier League are quiet on it. I wonder why that is. The more and more we see American ownership come into the UK, come into the Premier League, the more quiet the Premier League's going to be. Yep. Because eventually there'll be a majority of American owners, and the Premier League won't be able to say anything, because all of these clubs are going to be owned by Americans. And I'm sorry, this isn't the George Benson Hates America brigade. I love the US, but even on Chelsea's pre-season tour, there were tickets for a pre-season friendly were going for in excess of hundreds of dollars.
It's a joke, mate.
What do you mean?
It's a joke. And
what do you mean?
It's something that has to be nipped in the bud now. People might think we're overreacting, but this is the point where you react hard enough that it gets crushed, because it will snowball into something else. And people in the US are typically more used to higher prices than we are. Like, you look at the price of a boxing pay-per-view in America, it's like $100. It's ridiculous. And over here, it's like 20 quid. It's not comparable. So the US is just economically on another level from everywhere else in the world. But the reality is that, you know, it's not cheap to fly to the UK. It's not cheap to stay in London. So this isn't even opening up the marketplace. This is just reserving seats in the ground for very, very high net worth individuals, which is something that we just don't need to add to Stamford Bridge. It doesn't help anybody. All it does is line the pockets of the owners. And I think that the reason we're so angry and the reason we're so frustrated right now is, one, because of the impact on fans, but two, because of what you just said, George. It's questioning their sentiment, where they came in and we thought and hoped that this ownership was going to be about delivering results and winning. And of course, I understand someone spends a lot of money on something, they want a return. That's why they're here, right? But what's frustrating about it is, let's get a return by winning on the pitch. My concern is that is a secondary metric for them. And actually, it all comes down to numbers first and foremost. And we're turning into this conveyor belt of talent, which is not necessarily being purchased to strengthen our position. And the recent activity in the transfer windows, me and you were talking off camera about the ridiculousness of Conor Gallagher being sold for PSR to then buy Joe Felix, who then goes after 6 months, or not even 6 months.
Big Joe.
Yeah, Big Joe. Big Joe goes on loan after 6 months, less than 6 months. It's absolutely mental. The Chalobah situation, the fact he's just come back now out of sheer necessity because of injuries, again, should never have left. If it's about performance, you don't get rid of him. And even the replacement we signed, Tossin, I think he's okay, but is he better than Trev? Not really. And he was just a free transfer. No. That was why they did it. So this is the thing, mate. The signs are pointing more and more towards we don't really care as owners about winning. What we really care about is making money. And I get it, but but winning has to be the priority in how you make money. And as a fan, anything less than that is unacceptable.
All of these things are so intertwined because, for example, let's take the Newcastle-Arsenal game last night, right? I was watching the highlight video of that, didn't get up to watch it. Chelsea aren't in the Carabao Cup. I'm not getting up for it. Sorry. Newcastle win 2-0, 4-0 on aggregate. Could you hear the fans at St James's Park? And this isn't me putting down the northeast of the UK, but this is a fact. If you're a foreign person coming to the UK, the likelihood is you're going to London and you're not going to Newcastle. No offence, but I'm not wrong, am I? I'm absolutely not wrong. So Chelsea will be one of the clubs that will heavily, heavily suffer from these external ticketing platforms selling tickets to foreign people. And no offense, right, but this is just all factual information. The guy that's been going to Stamford Bridge for 30-40 years, is he probably more likely to sing his heart out in the stands to back the team and push the players than a guy who only wants to get a picture at Stamford Bridge or a woman that wants to get a selfie there? No. That person is not making more noise than that bloke that is being priced out of our stadium, priced out of following our football club. And what this will do eventually is it will make Stamford Bridge the kind of place where it's been for the last couple of years. Chelsea players don't have the atmosphere behind them to give them that extra man, to give them that extra push on the pitch. So Newcastle will keep going out there, winning big games because all of their fans are in the stadium. All of their fans are behind them, still paying above the odds, may I add. But at Chelsea, this is going to become a massive problem. And I want to make it very, very clear before we do move on to the other point. I would love for anyone who wants to come to Stamford Bridge to support Chelsea to be able to do it because it's a magical experience. I don't get to go anymore because I live on the other side of the world. My choice. When I was there, I was going every game, home, away, Europe. I love it. It's the best feeling, the best time in the world.
Unbelievable.
I don't want people to miss out on that, but don't facilitate it by spending in excess of thousands of pounds for it. Because that is exploiting the loyal supporters that have made this club what it is today. And that is just unacceptable in every stretch of the word. So all the comments like, oh, are you going to address it? Are you going to talk about it? Yes, I am. Here we are. And it trickles in on so many different levels. Like the transfer market is another one. Like, what do you... Like, you spoke about selling Gallagher for Felix. Let's not make it the Gallagher brigade again.
That has always pissed me off, though.
But I think it was always a questionable thing in the first place. Like, a lot of people just weren't Gallagher fans regardless. But if we focus less on what we lost and more on what we gained... Joao Felix scored for AC Milan on his debut last night. And guess who scored 2 goals for them as well? Tammy Abraham.
Did he? Yeah.
Unbelievable. AC Milan, I think it was, I can't remember who it was against. I think Roma maybe. So good win for them. But like it's just seems to me like there's just distaste and a lack of understanding and seriousness other than the lining the pocket mentality. That's where I'm at, and that's why I've been so frustrated in the last couple of weeks, because when the results on the pitch aren't great, the focus then starts going on, well, why is it like this? Who needs to change it? What do we need to change? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was speaking to Josh in the video yesterday, and let me know your thoughts on this, please. I think that we should have invested in the January window, because my mindset is if we buy the right players now, we get Champions League, which means we line the pockets more, we're back in elite competitions where we belong, other top players will want to come to us. That's my thinking. Josh was probably in agreement with a lot of that, but at the same time thinks that we've been so erratic in transfer windows. We have just bought, and then nothing's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good thing that we've been quiet in the window. What are your top end thoughts on that?
It's a really difficult one because I understand not buying in January because it's a difficult window. It's historically been a difficult window where you overpay, clubs are mid-season, they don't have time to make replacements, and it's difficult. I get that. Loaning João Felix makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, especially with the ban to Mudryk, especially with some of the issues we've had in the final third of the pitch. I just don't get it. I absolutely do not get it. And I think what concerns me is it's not that we're not making signings, it's that we're continuing to sign these players I've never heard of before for quite decent fees, which then limits our spending power in the future on bringing in like one or two significant individuals, which would actually elevate us to another level altogether. When we're pretty close already to being at that level, it seems like quite a stupid way to operate, in my opinion. Having said all that, some of these guys are going to be very good, I don't doubt it. Some of them are going to be great. The ones that aren't, you'll probably get your money back. So I understand what they're doing. It's just that look at Pep Guardiola when he came in. I have all the sympathy in the world for Maresca. I really do. He's going to make some mistakes, of course, but you need a bit of time to implement your system. And more importantly, you need your signings, you need your players. I can't believe that some of the guys we brought in have anything to do with him. I can't believe that some of the guys that left have anything to do with him. And I believe that the whole Chalobah Disasi saga is a good example of that. Even though I was maybe sort of questioning of Maresca. Like, I wasn't sure if he was sort of cool with it. But look, at the end of the day, he maybe hadn't seen much of Chalobah, and now he knows. Chalobah is a guy who's much better than Disasi. But overall, I think that we've spent so much money on so many youngsters. To continue to do that when we've let players go that could have helped us, it just feels like a little bit of a kick in the teeth because we don't know when and if these guys are going to be good enough. It should more be like we keep our best players and we add to that with these young players. I think the one thing that could change the narrative massively is when Esteval arrives in the summer, because we spent a lot of money on him, but he could be absolutely massive. And we were talking just before about wingers off the pod, and I was saying to you, and you were giving me a bit of stick, as many people will, because I made a big call at the start of the season, which is I think
this is gonna be a good one.
I think Noni Madueke, I still believe Noni Madueke has a massively high ceiling. However, at the minute, him and whoever plays on the left is part of the problem. We need someone who is clinical.
So what do we need, Harry? We need a Mo Salah, don't we?
Yeah, we need a Mo Salah. We need a world-class wide player. I do think that because of the way Maresca's system works, you need somebody out wide who's going to give you a lot of direct returns, assists, and goals. And the number of opportunities those boys, like, you're loving this, aren't you? The number of opportunities.
I just think it's very funny that it's not me who's made the shit call for once, and I can actually laugh at someone else.
Well, that's why you brought me on, right? But the number of the number of times where Noni's in a 1v1 scenario, or Sancho gets himself into a good shooting position, or whatever it is, and they just don't deliver. And I know they're not exactly like super high XG chances or anything, but that's the difference, isn't it? When you're playing these teams that sit with a really low block, you've got to take those chances. So basically, my overall feeling is there's definitely things we could have done that would have strengthened our chances of getting a top 4 position. And we didn't do it. And at the same time, I see this incredibly talented young player coming in the summer, and I think maybe they're hoping we've got enough, but I don't think you can really leave that to chance. That's why I'm a bit frustrated about it. But ultimately, they need top 4. They need top 4 the board to justify the spending, to increase the value of the club, to get the money that they want. We have to be in the top 4. So I just think they got it a bit wrong, potentially.
This is also why it's like when we talk about distaste, it's distaste on so many different levels. It's distaste in the way that it's like you look at some of the players, like Cole Palmer is you throw money at a kid and it's stuck, right? Yeah. Esteval, let's just say Esteval is another one because I think he will be. I think he could be a world-class potential Ballon d'Or winning footballer from what we've seen so far. He keeps scoring now, still. If he sticks, and that's like, okay, great, that's another real top player that we've taken a gamble on, taken a risk on, but it's paid off. The problem I have with it is there's way more that you just know, I guarantee won't stick.
Yeah. That
suggests to me that it's like you can't just hang your whole hat on this idea of, well, the model, and again, it's an AI-based scouting model. Flipping heck, mate. ChatGPT finds it difficult to even summarize how many players Chelsea have signed since these new owners have come in because there's too much information and it's all getting a bit screwed up. So no wonder sometimes we're buying players and we're like, what is that? Like, how can an AI scouting model be better than a manager that you're spending so much money on? Remember, Graham Potter had like a 60 million value contract, right? I don't think Graham Potter was the guy to sit there and say, oh, you know what? I really need that guy. I really need that guy. Can you go and get me him? No, of course. The club got the players that they wanted. Do you know what I mean? So, well, it was actually Tuchel signings, really, but that's beyond the point. The point is, the manager doesn't have any say here.
No.
In what the club are actually doing when it comes to buying players. And that is a huge problem. You said it yourself. Enzo Maresca didn't call up old Todd and be like, you know what, mate? I've been watching Saint Etienne a lot recently. They're flying high in France. They're not. They're getting relegated, mate. And he said, that Matisse Mugu in the middle. Does he play every game? No, he doesn't even play every game. He doesn't even start every game. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So why are they doing this?
I've got less of an issue. I've got less of an issue with the AI element of it because I think that's smart. I think taking that approach to finding the next top talents is good. It's just that we're not considering our current position, which is, for me, I think we're very close. I think we're very close to something really good. That we've got the right manager in. I think we've got some excellent players in key positions, and it's just a couple of additions, and we're not far off at all. And the thing that worries me is all these youth players coming in, and how. What are you looking at?
No, I can see Georgie tanning in the garden, in the mirror.
You're such a perv.
Carry on.
Anyway.
I'm not, she's my girlfriend.
Oh, that's all right then. So anyway, but it's more what concerns me is the amount of money we're spending on these players and how hamstrung we are to actually go big in the market. Like, could we even go and get an Osimhen right now if we wanted to? I'm not sure.
This is a big point because the money that we've spent has accumulated massively now to the point where we're not giving out the big wages anymore, which I guess that in the long run, business-wise, PSR and all this nonsense that's thrown our way in football nowadays, yeah, we've got to be careful about it. But if you don't sign 6 players whose wages accumulate to over 200 grand, who will never play for us, you can then buy the 200 grand a week player for a less amount of money than the 6, 15, 20 million pound fees that you bought those other players on. They're never going to play. Amari Kellerman, like, this bloke, man, 20 million quid. Again, and it always comes back to the player. Like, I don't dislike him. I've never seen him play. I probably won't ever see him play. It's more the principle of what that signing actually means. And it means that the club are not focused on the footballing matters. They're focused on, okay, well, PSR.
Yeah.
We need to sign a player from another club struggling with PSR, and then eventually everyone's going to scratch each other's backs. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, in this window, Villa want Disassi, Villa want Felix. It's funny how all this works, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it's crap, and I understand it to a point because that's the rules and they've got to do it, and every club is doing it. I'm just concerned that. Well, I mean, look, Man City aren't doing it. Look at the players they've just gone and spent money on. They don't give a toss.
Well, I think they're probably going to get in serious trouble anyway, aren't
but are
they?
They're
probably like, nah, screw it. We'll pay our way out.
But it makes me think that they're not, the fact that they've just gone and spent. I think that this PSR thing is almost an excuse to run a profit scheme. A scheme that's purely for profit. Honestly, it's a good argument. City have just gone and spent the best part of 200 million on players. I think it was 150, 200 million.
Yeah.
And
I think City spent more than every other Premier League club combined, which is a fun fact.
Yeah.
The January window.
What academy players have they been selling? Cole Palmer, but
yeah, but then isn't that like defining of who they are? Man City struggling by their standards, still in the hunt for the top 4. Then they go and have their £200 million blitz window. And fair play, as much as I don't like Pep Guardiola, obviously he's a great manager, but I don't like the way he whines. I don't like the way that City have had these 115 charges, yet nothing has come as a result of it. But they haven't actually spent that much money in the last sort of 5-10 years or so compared
for a while
to us.
Yeah.
But they haven't needed to because they've had such a good squad that have won trebles.
Like we said, George, go and look at the Champions League final winning squad for Chelsea. And it's literally, it's almost 10 different, it's almost 11 different players. It's absolutely mental. I think, is Reece James the only survivor now? It's insane.
Yeah, which is mad enough in itself. And to be fair, like, I also want to make it clear, like, when I'm complaining about these things, I'm complaining about how the owners and the sporting directors have orchestrated this. I still support Chelsea. I'm still watching every game, hoping that these players that we've either overspent on or are very young and not experienced enough, I want them to do well. I like a lot of members of this squad. I really do. But it's always about Chelsea winning for me and the longevity behind that. And I don't want to be you know, it sounds so spoiled. It really does with the success that we've had. But I just can't sit here and accept Chelsea being a team who our only concern in terms of our operations is profit.
Yeah.
That can't sit well with Chelsea fans.
100%. And a lot of it comes down to the difference between us and City. A lot of it is their recruitment was very, very good from day one. And our recruitment was absolutely shocking. And when they came in, that first wave of signings we had that was like Sterling, Koulibaly would be like the two flag bearers for it. Just absolutely shocking. Shocking how we spent the money initially. And I think they've been sort of... We were immediately set back by that opening window. It was rubbish. So we definitely overspent on Enzo Fernandez as well, in my opinion. As much as I think if you get him for 50 million, absolutely no problem.
Harry loves Enzo. I do agree with you. He's not played to £100 million standard yet.
I think that now that Felix is gone, it increases in my mind even more that he's a great 10 that drops deeper from the 10 position for us in that right side. Like he was doing when we were on that good run. He was playing brilliantly in that role. But I just can't accept that he will be a 6 for us. I just don't think he's good athletic enough to play a 6 for us. I really don't. That's basically my issue.
He's working. He's got the legs, Enzo Fernandez.
He's fit.
I've started to like him a lot more.
But it's fitness.
He's got an engine.
But it's fitness versus athleticism.
But it's not quickly
also
executed.
Yeah, and it's also his timing defensively in the role. It's just not right for me. And his positioning. Lavia's injury issues are huge. I know we're going off in another direction now, but I guess what we can move on to here is we've speculated and talked about the owners. We've talked about this ticket thing, the fact that we're not happy about it. So we put that out there and hopefully we'll get a reaction from Chelsea as a result of it and from the Premier League. But I think we should transition forward now into what we see as the way forward. We know what the squad is now for the rest of the season, George. There's no debate over that. So what are the fixtures we've got coming up and how do you see us lining up to get the right results?
Well, we've got 2 matches now away at Brighton. FA Cup, which is, for me, just as important as the league game. I think Chelsea need to be going for the FA Cup. I want to see Chelsea winning trophies.
That'd be fantastic.
A lesser game.
Yeah.
Do not take Jorgensen out the starting 11 and put Sanchez in for the Cup. Do not. Keep Philip Jorgensen in goal. I think we've got to beat Brighton away twice in a row. I think if you do that, Maresca will show something about his management. It will show our ability to actually bounce back. And I think what I want to see more than anything in the next sort of 5 games or so, because until the middle of March, we've got a really tricky game against Arsenal, which will obviously be very hard. But I think we've got 2 Brighton games, Southampton at home, and then Aston Villa. I want to see us go out and win all of these. And I'm not entirely sure right now, and I spoke with Josh about this yesterday. I was talking about Jackson, and people think I've been very harsh on Jackson recently, but I'm calling the spade a spade. The man ain't scored in 8 games. He's being hoiked off now just after half-time. But I do think it's important that Jackson does find his shooting boots again, that he does start scoring goals.
Well, can we just talk about that?
That will be the key.
Can we just talk about that quickly? Because it's both him and Palmer are struggling, and it's not a coincidence they're both in the middle of the pitch, in my opinion. And that's why I was talking about the wingers before being far too impotent. They need to get more goals because that is where the spaces open up in this Maresca system. And when you look at the way teams are lining up now, they've got these ridiculous low blocks. They have like at least 10 players behind the ball. When you watch that West Ham game, there were moments where they had nearly every player back in the box. It was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So what the hell are they supposed to do in that scenario? It's so difficult. So difficult. And that's when you have to have late runners, players coming from deep. You've got to have quick interchanges and all that sort of thing. But it is really hard. And then luckily we get that sort of deflected effort from Palmer that wins us the game. And you do have to look for a bit of luck sometimes in those scenarios. But I don't think it's a coincidence that those two have dried up in terms of returns. I saw a stat recently that was, I think since the turn of the new year, Palmer has created more chances than any player in any league. So he's still making chances. It's just that we're not finishing them, and the box is so crowded out at the minute. So I think a lot of this has to do with how do you find space for those players? Well, I think you've got to get players closer to them. For one, I think the fact that Enzo is on the pitch is a good thing, but it does leave us more vulnerable in the middle. It's a really difficult equation right now. I'm not exactly sure what the answer is. I did think Cucurella looked good overlapping last game when he came on, went as a overlapping left back instead of inverting. But we've got to find ways of making space in the middle. That's what I'm trying to say to you, George.
I'm going to make a big call here because I think in terms of making that space, you also need to have the players in those positions available. And I think as much as I love Reece James, and this has only just come into my head now, I think Reece shouldn't be starting for Chelsea right now. I think Gusto's athleticism is very important. You can see that Reece hasn't got... I mean, he did recover quite well at moments against West Ham, but he also took a yellow card.
Yeah.
I think that Malo Gusto, because of his ability to actually come central as well, I think it opens up more space. I think Gusto this season, there's been kind of a bit of like an identity crisis for Gusto in a way, because what we saw last year was in his first full season, we saw a player that was like, wow, look how much ability this kid's got. Chelsea have bought in another gem. That's what I mean. Some of the players do stick. Some of the players are really good that we're buying. Not all of them are rubbish. Not all pointless signings. And I think with Gusto, like you could see when Gusto was on the field against West Ham, he's getting forward again. There is a bit more of an attacking threat there. And what that does is when the defenders are doubling up on Palmer, or even doubling up on Madueke or whoever it is playing on the right wing or the left wing, quite often it's not a one-on-one that these players are coming into, unless Chelsea are quick with the counter, releasing it quick with the goalkeeper's distribution. But when Gusto's coming forward, that is another player centrally that other opposition defences have to look at. So if Chelsea have been, which we have been, and there's no denying this recently, it's get it out to the wing, probably cross it in the box, Jackson will slip over, we don't score. Like, that's been the equation that we're seeing too often. So with Gusto on the pitch, not only can he come in centrally with Noni holding that width, but it also draws that opposition defender out.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a big help. But I think you hit the nail, really. It's been obvious that Jackson and Palmer haven't been delivering the goal numbers, the assists and all that stuff. Like, I think Palmer is 32 chances created with 0 assists. That's mad.
Insane.
So a lot has to go on the wingers.
Yeah, I agree.
For why this is happening,
and
because of the way they're actually attacking.
Yeah, and I think Enzo should have done more in the last 5-6 games. I think he had a really good run for a period of time, and then he got moved deeper again. I think that kind of coincided with. I think that coincided with it, his positional change, and I liked him. I liked him in that 10 role. I think he was good there, and I think Lavia being out is such a damn shame, man. But I want to ask you, because you've just mentioned Gusto there. Why do you think Reece can't do that role? Is it a fitness thing?
I think it's purely I just don't think the legs are there the way they were, and it's. I should have probably said this sooner. I think Reece, when it comes to like basics of defending, right? Can you outmuscle your opponent, shove someone off the ball, use your body well? Yes, he can. But I also just think because of what Reece was so good at before was like arriving in the box, scoring goals, being that final pass. Reece's delivery of a football is impeccable at times.
Insane.
Like, there's a reason why it's now Cole Palmer and Reece James looking at each other over a free kick. I'm happy with that, as long as Palmer takes it most of the time, or Reece if it's in the 93rd minute or whatever it was to get us a draw the other day. But I think Reece, unfortunately, yes, we're probably managing him at the moment, but I just think maybe I don't know if he's ever going to be at that sharp level that he once was.
I believe he will. And the reason for that is because every time he gets injured, the level he comes back at is really high. He is at a ridiculous level for someone who takes as much time out as he does. He comes in and he plays well every time he's had a long layoff. And I know that it's...
Relatively, yes.
Yeah,
relatively,
but
yes.
What I want to say is the number of times we've seen players over the years have a significant injury and then they come back and they're terrible for like a season and then suddenly they're all right again. I honestly think Reece, look, whether or not it's possible, I don't know, but he needs a long run in the team. He needs a long run of matches. And I think then we'll start to see him at his best again. I still believe it's there. I do. It's too soon to say, mate.
I want to agree. I want to agree with you, but I just don't. I look at the way that we played in the last sort of 35 minutes of that game against West Ham, and I'm like, that should be the team. What we did there to turn that game from being like a very monotonous, almost like 1-0 down, I was like, if you don't change anything now, we're not going to come back and get anything from this game. Lo and behold, Maresca did change it. Thank goodness he finally saw that early changes were needed. And I think that what we finished with out there on the pitch should be what the team is, to be quite honest. And I thought Jadon Sancho had a decent game against West Ham. I think I'm the only person I've heard say that. But the reality was, when it gets into the final third and it's about that final decision, he's not been quite good enough. So maybe it is time to put in Nkunku there, potentially, because we certainly can't call up Mudryk. Man's going to be flipping playing video games for the rest of his life.
And Nkunku needs football. There's no doubt about it. Maresca came out and said he's been unfair to Nkunku. You've got to find a way to get him in. They've got to stop calling him a striker. And George, we've talked about this all season, and I'm still convinced, especially with your idea of bringing Gusto in, I think we've got to see Cole Palmer back on the right. And not playing as an out-and-out winger, but as someone who is going 1v1, who's getting into those half spaces. He can drop in and play as a 10 from there, let Gusto go wide. I really think we need to see it. I just need to see it to know it's not the right thing. He's a great dribbler, Cole Palmer. He's very, very good 1v1. He's great at getting a shot off, and he'll see plenty of the ball in that position. It opens up that spot in the team. It lets Nkunku come in, and that is why I'm interested in it. It lets Nkunku come in and
so put Palmer on the right so that Nkunku can play
10.
Centrally or left?
10.
So, yeah, okay. So then maybe Neto on the left?
Yeah.
But Neto's better on the right. It's just so annoying, isn't it? Like, there's so many, like, oh, it could be this or it could be that, but then it ends up being none of it. Like, and I think Sancho's got to be very careful because when he first came in at the start of this season, it was like reinvigorated. We saw the Sancho elements of it, sparks of it that we saw at Dortmund that we always wanted to sign him back in the day.
Yeah.
And then he's just kind of gone off the boil. Noni Madueke does it in-game. He'll score an early goal and be like, so I've got my goal now. Everyone's going to be talking about me. And then he just shuts off for the next 70 minutes or whatever it is. And I think I think what we saw towards the end of that game against West Ham needs to be something that we see more of. I think Maresca, now that Nkunku is there, now that the club have made that decision to price Nkunku out of a January move and offload Felix, I think Palmer in those central areas sometimes has to do a bit too much, which is probably going to inhibit his potential when it comes to being fully fit and not taking knocks all the time and being bullied.
Yeah.
And I think as a winger, it's not like when Eden Hazard was on the wing and it was about, yeah, all right, he's going to take everybody on, going to take a load of fouls and knocks in the process. But that isn't what Palmer's about. Palmer isn't I'm going to run and beat you every single time. We saw that for the goal against West Ham, to be fair. But that's not what he's expected to do.
No.
And I think when you've got players like Nkunku, who are such great link players, that I think that having that triangle of maybe even Jackson staying up top for now,
yeah, definitely,
Nkunku behind him, Palmer on the right,
definitely,
and the way that those guys are going to be asked to play, tight little pockets, little spaces being found in the half spaces on the outside, with Gusto having that ability to get forward as well. I think it's going to make Chelsea so much less predictable.
I think the big thing for me is it would be an absolute no-brainer if you had Lavia fit, because then you play Caicedo and Lavia in the middle. For me, having Enzo as that extra 6 is kind of the thing that makes me reluctant to do it. And then I think, could you play Reece there? Because I know that Maresca likes to have a certain number of attackers and a certain number of defensively minded players, if you want to put it that way, if you want to split it into 2 different blocks. So yeah, it's really difficult, but I just think we can afford, in those games where they're playing with a really deep block, I think we can afford to have another attacking player. And at the end of the day, when we lose these games or when these games don't go our way, you can nearly always point to an individual error. Nearly always. And so I feel like there's enough about us that we can increase our control of the game with another attacking player, and we can try to use the chances that we're creating to score more goals. And take that chance that what we've got is still enough at the back. That, last game you saw Levi Colwill, that was a shocking mistake. But I was at least pleased to say that Jorgensen was solid enough. We just got to get those mistakes out of the team, and I think we need to add a little bit more in the box. And I think it could look very different. But I understand it's a difficult balance. Suddenly you put another attacker in, and I might be dead wrong, and you might see that Maresca's got the balance dead right, and we just need to have slightly better players that are on. The individuals on the pitch right now, i.e. the wide players, and arguably Jackson, who's not been clinical enough, are actually the source of the problem, and the balance is correct. So I don't know. But I want to see Nkunku on the pitch with those guys for full 90 minutes, actually in a Premier League game, playing in a specific role that suits him, and we go from there. That's kind of what I'd like to see.
So Brighton at the weekend, away from home, FA Cup, first of 2 double headers on the South Coast. We will obviously speak to Harry next week, and I'm hoping that we win that game, and I think there'll be a talking point about either Jackson or Nkunku from that game. Whether it is Nkunku actually plays up front, which he shouldn't do, but maybe he does because Maresca's had enough of it and Guiu might be injured. I don't want it either. I think we've now got to kind of just deal on the pitch with what we've got. We've already spoken today about the poor recruitment, the poor decision and distaste from this ownership. But I want to keep supporting us every week, seeing us win. Hopefully, we go on an FA Cup run. We win that flipping Conference League, which should be an absolute no-brainer. And we get top 4 in the Premier League. We're looking forward, mate. We're looking forward. And next week, you're going to be in a new spot, aren't you, Harrison?
Yeah,
new
mate.
Background.
I'm finally moving into a new house, so I'm going to get a proper little setup for myself. And Sorry to everyone who enjoys me being on this, although I question how many of you there are sometimes. But hopefully we'll be consistent again. That is the aim and that is the plan for the rest of the season. I'm sorry, I've been on the move and now I'm back and I'm excited to resume.
I'm going to be the one on the move soon, so we're going to have to make things work and make ends meet. But if you want to follow Harry's channel, he does brilliant reviews, previews, breakdowns, face-off reviews, all this stuff for boxing. The link is in the description down below. It's not like I'm just sending you to another football channel. We've got something a bit different, some spice. What kind of chili would you say you are? If you had to like compare yourself to a chili, what would you be?
You know those ones back in Bali when me and George used to order lunch, we get this thing called babi guling sometimes. For those of you that don't know, it's like Indonesian hog roast with rice basically. And they would put these chili, yeah, it's unreal. They would put these chilies in it that were, I'd say borderline hallucinogenic when you ate enough of them. And I'd say I'm a good handful of those. They're very, very spicy and very, very delicious.
I'm going to put a picture on the screen now. For those of you that do want to get like a visual representation of Harry's spice level, this is it.
Yeah.
There we have it.
That's it.
Thank you guys for watching. If you don't already, please follow us on Spotify. If you find it jarring looking at our ugly mugs on the screen, you don't have to. You can listen to us as well, or instead. Do it as well, actually. Watch it, enjoy it, and then if you're bored, put it on the old ears. It gets us more views. It's brilliant. Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.